Hey folks, Papa Boris here, playing some more leaders. We're up in arena mode here against TT9278. I actually don't know anything about this player, so let's pop on over here, do a little bit of scouting. All right, very strong player. So, not that I would have, played less seriously, but we got a really crazy draft here. 3 great characters. Opponent grabs the Royal Guard, so it looks like I'll be taking the Illusionist and the Brewmaster. And I think when your opponent gets the Royal Guard and you get the Illusionist, something I've been on the receiving end of a lot, it's handy to put the Illusionist in the center line. So that way if the opponent does the full Royal Guard thing, you can swap with the Royal Guard, and that may discourage them from doing it. Now, I have to do a little bit of extra thinking here because there is this Brewmaster Illusionist combo. So say I put the Illusionist here and the Brewmaster here, something like that. My opponent would have to go down the left side, basically, in order for me not to be able to swap with his piece. Or I could do something weird like Illusionist here, Brewmaster here. Then if he goes here, I swap. If he stops short, I still can swap. Let's try it. It's a little frisky, but let's see what happens. Ouch, my opponent got a bruiser here, which I'm not happy about. So I'd need to hope that at some point we can top deck a jailer, ideally, or a protector as a second choice. But without that, with me not having the most explosive start, neither of these characters is gonna get super close to the leader. That's what I mean by explosive, is how quickly can you get to the enemy leader. If the game is slow, then an unopposed bruiser gives the player a really big advantage, because eventually you're just going to slowly lumber your way towards the other person's leader, and then that'll be that. So I'm curious how my opponent is going to play this. The Brewmaster and the Illusionist is kind of an annoying setup to face. If you do the usual king here, spawn Royal Guard here, step here, you can swap. Now, the Royal Guard can then get resummoned, but, it's... I don't like doing it. I don't like giving the opponent that option because it allows them to keep their leader centralized. And then it also just puts a piece kind of, near the middle. It looks like my opponent is going for the full Monty here. Now, I could have stopped this if I had put my Illusionist here, because then that would have had this swap available. As it is, there's no way for me to get eyes on the leader. On the other hand, this is fine, because after I do this swap, I step up with the Brewmaster, and I've still got that, latent energy, of being able to have my Illusionist and my Brewmaster next to each other. Yeah, it looks like my opponent is having some second thoughts about that, so they might not go all the way. Although, because they clicked on the Royal Guard and moved it, now they can no longer undo their leader's move, which is fine. It's not like losing or anything. The leader is completely safe there. But he maybe just doesn't want to give me that swap. Or maybe he wants to make sure that if I do get a swap, I have to use the Brewmaster kick so the Brewmaster stays on the front row. Now, if my opponent were to put the Royal Guard here, I think what I would still do is just move my leader, swap with my leader, and then put the Brewmaster up. So I really like this formation of Illusionist here and Brewmaster here. I still have the ability to swap. His leader is really far forward, so he basically is forced to keep his Royal Guard in front of his leader for protection. And I can do that. I can get in that formation regardless of whether he puts the Royal Guard there or not. Now, if it were me in his shoes, I think I would do the same thing. I would leave the Royal Guard here to force my opponent to use the leader for the swap. This puts the leader on the edge of the board, which I think is better for you than your opponent getting to keep his leader centralized, because once it's on the edge, you can start going in that direction, and you're more likely to be able to cut the leader off. It's a matter of whether, if I don't get, let's say, a jailer. Oh, interesting. So my opponent chooses this. So they prevent me from swapping, but they still get their Royal Guard very far forward. It's an interesting one. I'm not really sure I understand the value of that, because the thing is that, so after I do this move, right, where I make sure that my Brewmaster and my Illusionist stay together. Actually, I have a choice. I could put the Brewmaster directly behind. Ugh, hard to say what's correct here. My instincts tell me this, so we'll keep it this shape. Now, you're really limited on what you can do with your leader. Basically, you can't go here because I can kick and swap that way. Although that's not checkmate, so maybe you could do that. So you pretty much have to like put your leader back here, but then he's getting in the way of the bruiser's natural development. I have a feeling there is something a little bit off about that turn by my opponent. Now, here I have a question. Do I go aggressive with the rider? Like stick it here and shove it towards this leader? Or I could actually put the rider here. This is really interesting. This may seem odd to put the rider here, but his leader cannot go in this lane, I don't think. I mean, he can, it's just risky as hell to get it that far forward. So his leader really can't go in this lane. Either he has to go to this spot, or he has to put the Royal Guard back, which feels really weird. So then my rider here, if the Royal Guard moves, can shoot up, or he can ride this way, which my opponent cannot stop. It's a really frisky line to take the rider and let your opponent have the Hermit and Cub. I mean, yeah, the Royal Guard steps in, the rider goes here, he steps back with his leader. I'm not like winning or anything here. So what I'll do is I'll stick the Hermit. I'm really tempted to put him over here, which seems odd, but because the leader can't go in this lane and is forced to kind of hang around the middle or step here, the Hermit here actually does make some sense. Like, let's say my opponent goes towards where the Cub is. I'm kind of fine with that because that's where my pieces are pointing anyway. I don't know, this seems a little odd, but I am going to just stick the Hermit there, and we'll stick the Cub here. All right, there's the Acrobat. So my opponent's getting a really, really, really good draft. Bruiser, Royal Guard, Acrobat. It's kind of insane. But, I mean, I do have the Hermit, Cub, and Illusionist, and the Brewmaster is, you know, not chopped liver. So, really, I have one draft left. There's one top deck left. I would like for it to be the Protector or the Jailer. Otherwise, I'm up against a really strong squad and also an unopposed Bruiser, which, you know, given that my opponent are probably pretty equal in strength, means my opponent's probably just going to win the game eventually. But at least my opponent's current turn is a little bit awkward, because they have two choices. They can put the Royal Guard here, so I can't swap with the leader, or, which feels weird, undeveloping a piece, in a manner of speaking. Or they can put the leader here, and the Bruiser's development is kind of strange. The Bruiser would be there, I guess. Because they could do that. I can't swap with the Bruiser, right? That's just a suicide mission. Putting the Bruiser right there next to your leader, where you can't ever block the Bruiser. I mean, that's obviously losing. But that's fine. There's still a lot of space between the Bruiser and my leader. All right, looks like my opponent is going to keep the leader where it is. So he's going to bring the Royal Guard back, which is fine. That makes sense. It allows the Bruiser to develop. Every square you get to bring your Bruiser closer to the enemy leader is a victory. So here, I don't think I have any good Illusionist moves. Maybe what I should have done actually is put my Hermit here and then thought about swapping with the Hermit. Then my Illusionist gets to stay in the back and I get to just put like a vanilla piece up front. Right here, the Illusionist isn't really actually doing a whole lot. So my opponent's leader can just, you know, take a couple of turns to step back, and they're totally safe. So I'm a little bit worried about this one. There is no checkmate, unfortunately. I can Brewmaster my Illusionist here and swap with the Royal Guard. The problem is I don't have a fast piece. I don't have like a fast piece to then follow this up. You know, like who else is then going to be touching his leader besides my Illusionist? And I'm a little concerned that then the Bruiser is like, you know, a few steps away from my leader, and I can't stop that. Unless the Vizier pops out. If the Vizier pops out, I might actually do that play. That would be a very interesting line. All right, my opponent, of course, takes the Acrobat. So here, I think I have to take a kind of weird line, because my opponent, you know, can jump here and can jump here. But my opponent can also put the Royal Guard here, or put the Royal Guard here, and then jump here and jump here. So I kind of have to do this weird thing where I need to block these aggressive jumps, which frighteningly does mean moving my leader forward. My cub, I think, is out of position here. The cub's really not doing basically anything. All right. And then the assassin got top deck, so that's great. I love that a lot for me. Oh boy. Okay, so here, I mean, much as I love the assassin, I really have to consider whether I have the long game ability against a bruiser, acrobat, and royal guard to, like, you know, move my assassin around the edge and cut the leader off and do all that stuff. I'm not 100% confident that I'm actually going to be able to pull that off. I think, well, but on the other hand, if I take the rider, you know, like, is that going to accomplish anything? Is the rider really going to be able to ride over to the enemy leader with another piece and deliver checkmate? The main issue is that if I don't take the rider, my opponent probably will, but something even better might come out. I mean, there's still a claw in there. So it's tough to say that, you know, if I take the rider, that I'm stopping my opponent from getting a really good piece. My opponent might even want the archer anyway, because now my opponent knows that the bruiser's unopposed. So bruiser archer could be a thing. Man, I really wish the vizier had shown up. That would have made a big difference. As it is, it's going to be very difficult for me to avoid these pushes. Yeah, the thing is, whether or not I am able to successfully do an aggression with the rider, I think the main factor remains that against an unopposed bruiser and an acrobat, I just don't have the time for an assassin, I don't think. So the question is, which side do I put the rider on? This side? I think this side is the one that my opponent's more likely to run to. I'd like to encourage my opponent to go to that side because there's still this brewmaster illusionist business going on. All right, we'll stick it over here. I think my opponent's going to win this game, especially now that they got the claw. I had no chance. They top decked the bruiser. The jailer and protector never came up. So, you know, this is part of the rustic charm of the game, is sometimes you just, you know, lose the draft. My draft wasn't bad. I got, you know, a couple of S tier characters here and some good supporting characters, but, you know, against basically like 4 of the best characters in the game, including an unopposed bruiser, I really just think I'd have to have god levels of ability in order to beat an opponent who's basically rated 400 elo. But we'll do our best here. So, you know, keep the bruiser and the jailer together. Hope that my opponent misses some kind of a trick. Maybe get the rider behind enemy lines. Get a trick with the illusionist. Another possibility maybe is that if my illusionist kind of snakes into open space, I could do a swap with the leader to save it if my opponent's not expecting it. Something like that is always possible. Because the bruiser, the one thing you have going against the bruiser is slow. So it takes a number of turns for the bruiser to actually get up to your leader. And so with that means that you have some time to work with. Not happy about the claw, because the claw gives the opponent the opportunity, first of all, to get another piece that can just pull up really quickly. Like the claw, you know, here just gets to advance an extra square really quickly. But the other issue is the claw can potentially give speed to the bruiser. So with savvy play, my opponent can yoink the bruiser across the map and potentially undo some trickery that I might pull off swapping places with my leader. So yeah, my opponent, I had to be flexible in the time controls. So this is slow speed, which is a little agonizing for me because even normal speeds is kind of a little slow. But let's see what my opponent might do. Obviously, they might bring the, sorry, no, they're not moving the bruiser like that. That doesn't make any sense. They want to jump with the acrobat. And then maybe the leader steps back, bruiser steps in like this. They could do a different way. They could step back with the leader, step back with the royal guard. A little strange, admittedly, but then that lets them do that jump. No, not the guard. No, they step back with the leader, they move in with the bruiser, so they're still advancing their aggressive piece and moving their leader back, and then they can still get the jump into the square. Although they could just jump there first. Okay, I'm making that unnecessarily complicated. So yeah, they could step back with the leader, jump in with the acrobat, bruiser steps behind the royal guard, and then he has to just decide if he wants the royal guard to plug this hole or keep the royal guard where he is to protect that square from my pieces entering it. I guess something that my opponent may be afraid of if he does move the leader back and put the bruiser here is I could kick my illusionist and then swap with the bruiser. Bruiser here versus here isn't that big of a difference, maybe. And then I have a piece next to his leader. And then I ride in with the Royal Guard, and I'm kind of close to something or other. Maybe. Maybe he's worried about that. It's awkward, though, because I can't really develop this cub. At that point, if I move the cub in, the bruiser can just shove it. And then my illusionist is no longer near my brewmaster, so I lose that potential energy. Another option I could actually, just to keep the headache going for my opponent, is I could put my hermit there and then put the rider here. And that way, I have the brewmaster next to the rider and the illusionist, so my opponent has like more things to worry about. Oh, interesting. They're stepping there with the Royal Guard. Oh, okay. So they're... Okay, that's pretty smart. So my opponent's creating a defensive wall here and still advancing with the bruiser. I'm guessing he's going to undo that movement. No, he's actually not taking the jump with the acrobat now. He is reserving the jump. Okay, so that makes sense. Now, basically, I have to be very careful about the acrobat jumping back here. You know, normally I don't care too much about acrobat jumps, but in this case, when he has the bruiser, letting an acrobat go behind your lines for free is a little bit risky. Yeah, this move makes sense. He's forming a wall in front of his leader. It's really difficult for me to get a piece, let alone two pieces touching his leader. I don't really have the right squad for that. And then the claw here is pretty clever. It prevents my... Well, actually, I'm not sure. I guess I was going to move my hermit anyway, but maybe by creating this wall, he's just like reserving space for his claw to be able to pull up. All right, so let's see. I could kick my illusionist back and then swap with the Royal Guard and then have one piece touching his leader, which then gets shoved by the brewmaster back and accomplishes absolutely nothing. Okay, so maybe let's not do that. I could shove my illusionist here and then move there, but the problem is the illusionist is like the last... Well, I could actually do that. Illusionist is behind enemy lines. It's not super effective in that role, but then there is this line to my leader, though I don't think I want to be swapping that way anymore. Yeah, I wish I had my illusionist at the back of the chain, but of course that would never have happened with the way that this game developed. All right, what I'm going to do is move here with my hermit, here with my cub to stop the acrobat from jumping to that square. Can I step up with the illusionist, up with the brewmaster, and up with my leader? Seems a little odd. What if I do it differently? What if I put my leader here and my hermit here, and then I ride in with the rider? Maybe that makes more sense, because that way I'm still stopping the acrobat from jumping, but I am getting my rider to advance more naturally. And then what to do with my illusionist and brewmaster, if anything. I mean, I could move one of them up and then it'll just get shoved. It doesn't hurt me, but it doesn't help me. I can still do this weird line where I get my illusionist back there. I'm not sure what that really accomplishes. Because even swapping with the leader at that point wouldn't do anything, since my other pieces aren't in line. If this were like an assassin and I could swap with the assassin, that would be something. Now, of course, I kind of do wish I had the assassin instead of the rider, just to go behind the enemy lines. But of course, maybe my opponent would have played differently. They probably would have formed a wall over here instead, had I put the assassin on this left side of the board. If I don't do anything, my opponent could just move everything down, just advance the conga line one space down. I'm not sure what his long-term game plan is, but then again, I sure as heck don't have one, although then the bruiser can start shoving in here. All right, I'm tempted to just move my illusionist and brewmaster up a square each. Fine, it means that my rider is not next to my brewmaster, but I think it's just giving up a lot if I allow him to move this wall down. This way, at least I'm threatening something or other. But yeah, it's looking pretty grim. My Brewmaster Illusionist start was fun, but I don't. But since I couldn't, convert that into an instant win, I'm not sure this is enough juice. Because I can easily swap with a piece near his leader, but I cannot actually get another piece near his leader. He top decked the Bruiser, he top decked the Acrobat, he top decked the Claw, so all these were top decks. Granted, I top decked the Hermit and Cub, but unfortunately, this Rider really needed to be something a little bit better. Now, granted, what would that have been? Yeah, the Vizier actually would have been good, although then we would still have a very grinding game if that were the case. My main hope for winning, which admittedly is a little bit slim, is that my opponent somehow lets me get this Rider behind enemy lines without losing, and then I do a Brewmaster Illusionist trick to win the game that my opponent overlooked. And it's never a good sign if your strategy relies on your opponent just straight up messing up, but I feel like that's my main hope here. All right, so my opponent, is he going to play that cautiously where he's going to just... Oh, he's doing an Acrobat jump that way. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't actually think about that. Although it's not really any different from just moving the Bruiser, moving the Acrobat, moving the Claw. But this does allow him to choose the order. He wanted the Acrobat ahead of the Bruiser. Or maybe he's wanting to push the Bruiser up the middle. No, he did not want to push the Bruiser up the middle. That's very interesting. I wonder why he didn't want to do that. Okie doke. Well, I can put my Rider here, Cub here, Hermit here, which stops the Bruiser from shoving unless he claws up my Hermit. And then he can shove the Cub back. It's an idea. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but it is an idea. I can kick my Illusionist in one of two directions and swap with a piece to get one character touching his leader, but alas, not two. However, if I do it on the Acrobat, it does put the Acrobat a little out of position because then the Acrobat can't jump. And then I do have two pieces, in a line against his leader, so there is like this threat of checkmate. Now, he can obviously bruise my Illusionist back in that case. Still might be a little bit uncomfortable. And if I'm not doing anything with these characters anyway, I might as well. All right, let's do it. I mean, this is part of my problem with this game is that I just hate these grindy wall games. So I'll do something just for the sake of doing it. Because I'm thinking like, well, if I lose, then, at least it's over fast. Maybe what I should do... Yeah, maybe we're going to be extra frisky. I am actually going to, step up with the Rider instead of stepping into the middle. The thinking being, you want to shove my Rider? All right, well, then you're not shoving my Illusionist. And then we'll just put these pieces here. And then my leader, I think I want to move it this way to get further from the Acrobat, which granted, you can only get so far from an Acrobat, but also further from his leader, because the further away I am from his leader, the less likely it is I have to worry about Royal Guard shenanigans for a surprise checkmate. So here, my thinking is that I am near his leader, I'm technically threatening checkmate, he can shove my Illusionist, but then it's still next to the Brewmaster, so I could still do tricks. And then my Rider's pretty far forward, and if he's shoving this way, there's a hole here that my Rider can get into. Now, there are some possibilities. He can move the Royal Guard, shove my Illusionist that way. Then my Illusionist is glued to his leader, but it's not really acting as an Illusionist, and it's been separated from my Brewmaster. But yeah, the thing is, it's not like I've really planned this out, or that I think I'm in any great shape. I think my opponent's still got this game in the bag. It's just that, when in doubt in leaders, just try to give your opponent a headache. I don't know if that's a great strategy, but it's my philosophy, let's say. Let's call that, instead of strategic advice, that's just my way of life. All else being equal, this is a game where the tactics can get complicated. Good moves are really easy to miss. It's part of what makes this game great. It's just there's all these characters and special powers, and there's a lot of opportunity to come up with clever moves. There's ways that you can steal a win if your opponent misses something, and you can miss something, and then it's heartbreaking. Like, there's that element to this game. And so giving your opponent a headache to try to tax their mental faculties seems like a good plan in my book, as opposed to, more or less playing face up, where your opponent can easily calculate all your moves because all you're doing is shifting your wall around their pieces. All right, so even though we're on slow speed, my opponent is really using all this time here. One thing is that if I somehow do manage to go on the offensive, however impotent that offensive may be, at least it forces him to keep his pieces back. If he has to keep his bruiser on defense, then at least it's not marching towards victory. But yeah, there's a lot of things to contemplate. What if he shoves the rider? What if he claws up my illusionist? I mean, there's all kinds of weird things he could potentially do. But yeah, that my opponent made the choice to have the bruiser be here and the acrobat be here. He could have easily, if he had just walked everything in a straight line, it would have been flipped. And yeah, I think it's probably smart he did that, because if it was the bruiser over here where the acrobat is, that would be better for me and worse for my opponent, because the bruiser would have to now walk extra spaces to get back to my leader. Whereas the acrobat definitely has more potential to jump back. Now, with this positioning, it is a little tricky for my opponent to now engineer a good jump with the acrobat, because I'm in control of all the spaces it can jump to, or at least a lot of them. But it can change in a heartbeat. The acrobat can just let go here, for example, and then this jump is reserved. So now I have to worry about this jump. Like, the acrobat could get over to my leader very quickly in a way that the bruiser, had the bruiser been over there, could not. All right, so my opponent did decide to move the royal guard so that the illusionist could get shoved that way. And then he has to block this square so I don't checkmate him. So that's extremely reasonable. He's also reserving this jump for the acrobat, which makes a lot of sense. All right, so now I have some interesting choices to make. I kind of think I should press the advantage here, quote unquote. I mean, I should at least try to be aggressive. The question is, do I want to move my rider in this hole? If I put the rider in the hole, I can't have my rider touching the brewmaster. If I put the brewmaster here, I'm threatening to kick the rider and have the rider move in. But the problem is, if I just move here and I'm threatening the whole rider kicking business, well, then my opponent just steps up with the royal guard and plugs it. So what I'm going to do here, I think, is step the illusionist back so that the king has a harder time running into the corner over here. And I am going to plug the hole. For better or worse, that's the way I live this game, is I just go for it. I think we need to move the bruiser or brewmaster here, because I need to make it so that if his bruiser kicks, then it gets shoved to this square where it's next to the rider, which seems like a good thing to have. But I have to worry about the acrobat. The acrobat can jump here, and if the claw goes here, then he can jump there. Not in love with what I'm about to do, but I think I have to take this kind of weird line. Oh my god, I have to be very careful if you make a move like this. I'm thinking of putting the hermit here and my leader here to stop the bruiser from being able to put my brewmaster back. But in order to do that, I have to be okay with the bruiser stepping into this spot. So it looks like, okay, the bruiser steps in here and the claw goes in for checkmate, right? But that's not actually correct, because if the bruiser goes here, then he shoves my brewmaster there, and that kind of plugs the hole. God, that's really risky. I don't know if that's worth it. So I could just leave things the way they are. His claw can go here. His acrobat can go hop, hop. Okay, and then his acrobat's near my leader, which is, sad. But he can also, do weird things. Like he can shove... If I move my hermit here... Oh, God. I'm just trying to figure out if I need to move my hermit here. I could put the hermit here, and then he could still bruiser my brewmaster back. Maybe that's not the end of the world. Though I hate the fact that his claw can just move and the acrobat jumps over here. I don't like that very much. So I can put my Hermit here, and that stops this long-range Acrobat jump. Then his Bruiser can bruise my Brewmaster and has a choice of where to put it. He can put it here, forming a wall, or here, being next to my Rider. Maybe I'm just okay with both of those things. Maybe those are just both fine with me. I think I'm just going to do this. We're going to leave the Cub here to stop the Acrobat from jumping there, and we'll pass. So now the question is, do I want to move my leader? Oh boy, so many questions. I think I do. Maybe. I'm trying to get my leader in line with my Illusionist for maybe getting some kind of a snipe swap. But at the moment, that doesn't really work because his pieces are definitely going to be in the way. And also over here, my leader isn't even safe. So I don't know if that really matters. It's really just about getting the extra square between myself and his Bruiser. Though I hate to get closer to the edge of the board. Here, there's always a chance I could like double back somehow. Though that'd be difficult to do. I'd have to really apply some pressure on his Bruiser in order for that to happen. Crud. Crud, crud, crud. Alright, I'm going to leave the leader where it is. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But my Illusionist and my Rider are applying some pressure. It's not that hard to block the Rider. He can just put his Royal Guard here. Although then his Claw can't move because then my Rider can slip in. So if he has to keep the Claw and the Royal Guard back for defense, then that means that it's just the Bruiser and the Acrobat. But granted, if you are being attacked by two characters, the Bruiser and the Acrobat are two of the worst ones. It's really unfortunate I don't have a good swap with my own pieces. Because there's like no good piece I can swap with the Illusionist to like be near his leader instead. I'd like the Assassin, for example. Though, of course, the whole game would have been different if I had summoned the Assassin over here. Alright, he's going to push my Brewmaster, forming a kind of wall here. And then that means I could potentially kick my Hermit and give the Hermit an extra move. He has to put his leader here in order to stop me from swapping with his Bruiser and getting the Bruiser all the way to the edge of the board. There is the wall. Makes sense. All right, and the Acrobat steps up. So I could form like a little arrowhead here with my Cub and Hermit and Brewmaster, so you can't actually shove here. The problem is that if I do that, then his Acrobat gets to just jump in, and then I'm not very long for the swirl, I don't think, if that happens. So the other option is that I just move in, let him bruise what he wants to bruise, but just make sure that the Acrobat doesn't have good jumps. That's kind of a hard game to play. God, I wish I had an Acrobat. How amazing would it be if I could just jump over? Ah, one can wish. Alright, so I think I'll still move my Rider here. Futile as that is, you know, maybe it might encourage him to pull his Claw back. Maybe. Do I want to actually... like, what's my Hermit doing here? It's not actually doing anything here. Other than stopping the Claw from moving here. But then again, is it actually any better here than here? Like, if we're just talking about where I want my Hermit to be. I mean, one's as good as another. And then I could just Brewmaster my leader this way. Then his Bruiser can just shove my Cub and the Acrobat steps in, and then I get checkmated the next turn, so maybe not that line. But I don't want to move my leader because then the Acrobat can jump in and then I get checkmated. Okay, so I guess my leader has to stay put. Alright, yeah. I don't know how... oh, hang on a second. Do I want to move my Illusionist? I'm not sure I'm accomplishing anything moving the Illusionist. I could like put it here and threaten to swap with his Claw. Ugh, I don't know. There's a world where, like... oh, I just lose the game. Hold up. Sorry, I just lost the game. He shoves my Brewmaster. claws up the cub, and then the acrobat just steps in for checkmate. Ah, missed it. Missed it. But yeah, he saw that instantly, of course. I, again, don't think there was really anything I could have done to win that game. It wasn't a nightmare draft, but my opponent top-decked better the breaking glass. My opponent top-decked better pieces than I did, and there just wasn't much I could do there. So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.